An Entrepreneur's 2-Year Stint in the Co-Living Industry by Johnny Ilka. Read by Johnny Ilka. First of all, what is co-living? There are many definitions of co-living, so I will provide my personal definition. Co-living is a modern type of intentional living that focuses on community and human connection. It usually involves a group of people living together who share common spaces such as kitchens, indoor lounges, office rooms, and other rooms. Co-living is particularly appealing in today's age because it allows travelers to easily connect with each other when moving to a new city, thus reducing the time required to create meaningful human relationships in a new location. Co-living is commonly summarized as adult dorms. Johnny Ilka's story. When I started my entrepreneurship journey, I decided to invest the majority of my resources into an idea that I happened to come across throughout my travels. This concept was the co-living concept. Being that the whole co-living idea was and is relatively new, there are a plethora of definitions out there. What this article outlines is my personal experience and what I've learned about the whole journey. Planting the seed. When I left my corporate job at Amazon as an analyst, I took the time to do some self-exploration. I traveled and dedicated quite a bit of time to understanding what I needed in life. Along this journey, I came across a project called The Hive in Bucharest. It was essentially a large house focused on providing students a new way to live in the city. It was so inspirational to me that I decided to create my very own co-living space. I took the time to understand the individual components of what made it great, and I started taking the steps to integrating as many of these as possible in my very own co-living space. Just as I started making the move to Cluj-Napoca to create my very own space, the Hive changed ownership and started taking their very own steps towards transforming into becoming a more ideal co-living space. The Hive turned into Vine 21, and co-living truly became part of their brand. Over the course of the next 2 years, I watched as Transylvanian Coliving and Vine 21 both sprouted and would grow from the seeds planted from the Hive. Importance of community. I recognized that community was essential to any co-living space, so I prioritized this from the start. I arrived in Cluj-Napoca and dedicated all day every day for 2 weeks to searching for any potential spaces that I can help become a co-living space. At the time, I had time and resources to spare, but even that pool was not endless. Even with many resources, my greatest bottleneck was community. I decided to take the route of a startup and start with an MVP. As mentioned previously, co-living can be defined in many ways, and I chose to focus on what I could provide given my resources. I recognized my limitations and chose to invest into a small co-living space that offered a dedicated office room. This co-living space implemented community through weekly events. Given the circumstances, this space had significant limitations, and yet I proudly marketed this place as a co-living space. May 2018. Transylvanian Coliving started taking root in early May 2018. I relentlessly searched for spaces and was about to give up hope until I found a large 177 square meter apartment. It was clear that a lot of work was needed to get it started, but I was up for the challenge. I was extremely lucky when I started this project because I had immense support from many people close to me. The individuals that supported me most were my investor, my parents, and my residents. Without the support of these people, I would not have gone anywhere. Transylvanian Co-Living would have crashed before even taking off. June-July 2018. During the summer of 2018, Transylvanian Co-Living was taking its first steps. Being located in a centrally located area in Cluj-Napoca, I took advantage of the touristic high season and got a significant financial boost by providing accommodation to some of my very first guests for the 2 big yearly festivals in Cluj. With the help of my investor and my parents, I was able to get the place mostly up and running before the first festival, Electric Castle, came into town. Electric Castle 2018 marked the launch of Transylvanian Co-Living. By the time the real cash cow rolled into town, untold, Transylvanian Co-Living was vetted and ready to provide quality accommodation. It is super important to take into account that festival goers are not ideal co-living residents, but they provided the financial support I needed to get the place up and running. These 2 festivals provided the financial backing to kickstart the whole project. These clients were my first customers and they paid handsomely. The pivot to co-living, August 2018. There's no question that the clientele that came into town for the festivals were very different from the clientele that came into town for co-living. I expected this day to come and was fully prepared for the transition to appeal more towards the co-living crowd. I made it as easy as possible to appeal to residents looking to stay medium, 1 month, to long-term, 3 or more months. I got my first co-living clients, and Transylvanian Coliving moved into the cruising phase of the business. Starting this business was akin to a plane, or a rocket, taking off. Getting it off the ground consumed the most energy, but once it was at cruising altitude, it required considerably less energy. I invested a significant amount of energy into marketing towards this crowd, as I explained in another article. The crowd I appealed to most was the digital nomad crowd. Being that Transylvanian Coliving provided an office space, it was an ideal place for digital nomads who worked from home. However, digital nomads were not the only people that Transylvanian Coliving appealed to. It also appealed particularly well, ranked in order of number of guests, to retired/semi-retired people, yes, 50 plus years, students, and tourists. The importance of community and inclusiveness, especially through language. I realized that Transylvanian Coliving would quickly become defined more and more by the people who lived there. Along with myself, I got another long-term resident, and together as 2 native speakers of English, we provided a very particular vibe to the place. Something I noticed in this part of the world is that foreigners are willing to pay a premium price to be surrounded by other people where they feel that they collectively fit in. Transylvanian Coliving definitely appealed to foreigners who felt comfortable speaking English at home, and being that I was an American Romanian, I was their cultural bridge in this foreign land. I learned that people need exposure to other humans where they can simply have a chat and converse smoothly. Travelers rarely find this in foreign lands, as it can be difficult to find your people. The main reason a nomad was able to spend more than a few weeks in Cluj was because they could fill that need. Cross-discipline application in achieving community engagement. Although seemingly unrelated, my passion for board games brought me a priceless community to Transylvanian Coliving. There was a thriving couchsurfing community in Cluj, and many locals attended the events hosted by this community because they were given exposure to internationals and other people where an international person would feel comfortable interacting with them. I theorized that this is because they would usually speak English at these events. I attended a game night event organized by this community, and they were severely lacking a reliable place to meet. I gladly offered to host the game nights, and this community of gamers quickly brought a flourishing community right to my doors. Transylvanian Coliving became synonymous with the weekly game night hosted by the couchsurfing community in Cluj. Looking back, I was extremely lucky to have come across a community like this, and was in need of something that Transylvanian Coliving was able to provide. Although they didn't necessarily provide any sort of financial support to the co-living space, they provided something else that was priceless: community and good vibes. The ongoing challenges of managing a small co-living space. As time passed, I only got more experience as a manager for Transylvanian Coliving. In order to maintain a certain type of vibe, I sought to operate the place at a 30-30-30 ratio of residents. 30% short-term residents, 30% medium-term, and 30% long-term, not including myself. Maintaining this ratio was always a significant challenge and involved a lot of uncertainty. Over the course of a year, I would change this ratio to accommodate for a dip in demand or vice versa. The financial aspect of the business was extremely important, and I had to accommodate for periods of low demand and capitalize on periods of high demand. I also wrote a more in-depth article on this on my website on johnnyilka.com. Appealing to the co-living crowd. If you were to compare Transylvanian Coliving to any other Airbnb in Cluj, it was clear that we were different. From what I've seen, most Airbnb hosts did not even think about appealing to clientele looking to stay medium to long term. When people thought of Airbnb, they didn't think that people would book anything more than a short stay for a vacation. Transylvanian Coliving was especially appealing because it provided the essentials to what a resident needs to stay on a medium to long-term basis: a fully stocked kitchen, a desk in the bedroom for privacy when working, access to a laundry machine, utilities included in rent, dedicated space in pantry and fridge, walking distance to grocery stores, and a significant discount of 30% for long-term stays. After staying at many Airbnbs, I found that even if I wanted to stay there medium to long term, I wouldn't have been able to because they lacked one or several of these things. Most importantly, the biggest influence on whether a resident would stay medium to long term was the 30% discount I gave for monthly stays. I gotta give credit to the Airbnb platform for this, as this functionality made it easy for me to appeal to both the short term and the long term crowd without any intervention on my end. Short term guests would pay significantly more per night than a long term guest, but they require more attention, time, and resources to manage. The co-working space. Sure, Transylvanian Coliving gave discounts that incentivized long-term stays, but what allowed a resident to sustainably remain there was the fact that they were able to continue bringing money into their bank account. Those who work from home find that they face other struggles that those who work from the office simply don't have. This is where co-living came into play. Renting an apartment with a separate office room is not very cost-effective, so sharing one is the right way to go. Of course, finding accommodation with this luxury is difficult to come across, so this is where Transylvanian Coliving really stood out. The revolving door of residents at Transylvanian Coliving. An important aspect to co-living is the exposure to people. Maintaining a ratio of 30-30-30 provided the vibe that was needed to be able to call it a co-living space. Having a new resident every once in a while would bring a fresh new influence to the place. Sure, I could have just rented out each bedroom with a 1-year lease, but then what would it make it any different from any other apartment? Although the revolving door of residence brought an interesting atmosphere, it was also emotionally taxing. As an on-site host, I would naturally connect with my residents as we spent time together. Some residents would come and go, and I wouldn't even blink an eye, while others would leave a significant impact when they left. While there are many pros and cons to having a revolving door of people in your life, it definitely accentuates the passing of time. Nothing reminds you that time is passing more than the coming and going of people in your life. The real value to me, as a founder of this co-living space, was precisely this: the revolving door of people that came through the space. Even now, in writing this article, I have the pleasure of hosting guests from Romania, Gabon, and Netherlands. Each has their own distinctive backgrounds and goals in life. Those who have never experienced such a thing are simply ignorant to the value of these interactions. One particular guest is working on opening his very own community-centric space focused on camping and has a lot of experience in business. His past experience in business gives me exposure to someone with priceless knowledge and experience. We see many things eye to eye, including the community aspect. We both see the value in the human interaction and that these businesses bring exactly that. At one point I asked him, I really believe that isolation and lack of real human interaction is society's biggest problem, but most people don't even realize that they have this issue. That's because most people have never experienced it and have no idea what they're missing. He agreed, and we both lamented in the fact that there is only so much we can do about it. Consistency through interaction with locals. After some time passed and a good number of residents came through the co-living space, I realized that I needed some consistency. As a human being, it's pretty important to have some consistent people in your life, and I was struggling with finding a small tribe of people that would provide this. Luckily, I had the board game community, and I did not hesitate to maintain this tribe. I continued hosting weekly and bi-weekly game nights, and through these game nights I would connect with other like-minded individuals and maintain some mental sanity with some consistent exposure to a small group of people. When it came time to take a step back. From time to time, I would get sick and tired of the place or the long-term residents. Through regular self-reflection, I found that I would seek some change in the environment and take a vacation from the co-living space. Although I have Romanian roots, I left most of my close family and friends in Phoenix, Arizona. Come winter, I would take a considerable chunk of time to travel across the pond and spend time in my home city. In doing so, I had to ask for help. A long-term resident responded in kind and helped me take care of some aspects of hosting. Since I would leave during the winter months, there's very little turnover and I wouldn't have to ask for very much help. However, my lack of presence was definitely noted. Every time I would take a break from Transylvanian Coliving and come back, I was reminded of how important it is that there is a host that is vested in the success of the business. A co-founder is the ideal partner to help you in these situations, as an employee simply does not see things in the same way. The learning lessons. There are countless life lessons that I've learned in partaking in this business, as could be said for any other business. At the end of the day, what brought me the most value was the human interaction. I would occasionally forget about this, and I would start to disregard the importance of this until I'd take a break. I was at Vine 21 for a few weeks, and I asked Hugo, one of the founders there, "What takes up most of your time in this business?" Hugo responded, "The people." He said it so calmly and so surely that I couldn't help but feel the importance of this statement hit me like a truck. I realized that my space was no different and that the human aspect was not to be neglected. The people that came through my space had such a wide range of backgrounds, and I was lucky to have been able to sit down with them at the dinner table, share a pizza, and have a chat. How often are you given the chance to have a chat with some quality people in a comfortable environment? You can connect with them in such a unique way, and they are so willing to open up and tell you their life stories. Most people that come through my space want to interact with new people. It is truly one of life's pleasures to exchange stories with strangers from far and wide. We have the resources and opportunity to do so, and yet most people steer clear away from this, largely due to media propaganda and social stigmas. It hurts me somewhere deep inside to see people run away from this concept in fear. What has society come to that we now cower in fear from interacting with other people? Sure, not everyone you are exposed to are of good quality, and they may not even be worth your time, but if you approach these interactions with the right mindset, there is always something to be learned. I am truly grateful for the chance to create an environment where I was given the opportunity to exchange life experiences with strangers from far and wide. Although I didn't change the world, I changed the world for a few people, and these people changed the world for me. Thank you to all my guests who came through my co-living space. Time to dock, Spaceship Johnny. One of my most memorable guests, a retired Navy sailor, said that Transylvanian Coliving was akin to being on a ship. The journey on Spaceship Johnny was quite an adventure, and it's time to dock this ship in a port until a new captain takes charge. The emotional roller coaster. Writing this piece took me through an emotional journey that only I can truly appreciate, and in doing so, I truly teared up. Fortunately, these are tears of joy, and I'm lucky to say that I was able to partake in this adventure. Events out of my control forced me to make some drastic changes in life, and I only hope that I can put what I learned here to good use. It's true that most businesses fail, and I can attest with the failure of my many other businesses, but fortunately, not only has this business been successful, it provided me a priceless learning experience in life that nobody can ever take away from me. Thank you.